Bonjour tout le monde, je m'appelle C.J. Daugherty, l'auteur de la série Night School, et je tenais à saluer tous mes lecteurs français, un petit peu, mais en anglais, if you'll forgive me, I just wanted to say hello and tell you that I'm so glad that Night School came out in France first, and that you're enjoying Night School. The book was inspired in part by a photograph I saw in the newspapers in England of the Prime Minister and other government officials when they were teenagers in a private secret group that they were all members of called the Bullingdon Club, which became quite famous in England. And that got me thinking, what was it like to be them, to be the child of government officials, of kings, of great financiers, the CEO of Goldman Sachs. Where does his child go to school? And how would it feel to be almost above the law? I mean, you would almost be able to get away with anything. And if you could get away with anything, and you're 16 years old, what might you do? The Night School series looks at a girl named Allie who is plucked from her normal middle-class life by circumstances and finds herself in a world she doesn't understand at all. After her brother's disappearance, her life sort of falls apart. And after her arrest, she finds herself sent to a boarding school far from home where she knows nobody. So that is sort of the beginning of the series, where she finds out there are things going on she doesn't understand, and she explores what these things are, which turn out to be much bigger than she ever could have imagined. Well, I have had two previous lives, if you will, as a crime reporter and as a working for the British government. So what I wanted to do was kind of take both of those elements. So crime, I find fascinating, particularly the most violent crimes. I'm afraid I must have some sort of problem, but I find them fascinating, and I wanted to write about them. So combining my interest in politics and how young people view politics with crime and how young people view crime. So that's what I was doing with it. So that does take all of my background into what I'm writing right now, into the Night School series. Part of it, I was very influenced by reading Harry Potter years and years ago. I loved the idea of a setting where children are in a magnificent building and where they outnumber the adults 30-1. I always found that such a possibility for either disaster or fantastic things to happen. So I always wanted to touch on that. I suppose living in England also, because so many people I know attended boarding school, and I did not, obviously. I was born in America and attended a perfectly normal high school down the street. So for me, it is fantasy, in a way, boarding schools. It's a fantasy, so I can approach it as fantasy and write it as a kind of fantastical situation. Thinking. If there's anything, the crux of the series, I suppose, is about trust and about feeling on the outside of things. So if anything, what you can take from the series is that if you feel on the outside of things, you are not the only one, and that also perhaps you should trust nobody. Oh dear, let me think. Again, I have to be careful what I say because I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't read book 2 yet, but let's say Allie is thrown by what happens in book 2 so severely that she regresses, and we find her again having to find normal. She has to again find center ground, as she did in book 1. She loses all of her faith in everything that she thought she was building at Samaria for a variety of reasons. So in book 3, we see Allie rebuild and become first weaker, then stronger, because the ultimate goal for her is to be completely self-contained, to be able to defend herself, to be able to fight her own battles. And the fewer people she trusts, the stronger she gets. I think one of the things that people like about it is that it's not paranormal. So the fact that it is it's a real world situation in which, and yet it is still thrilling. So things do happen to Ali that are extraordinary, but they're the sorts of things that could happen to anybody, perhaps, although you would hope they wouldn't. I've always thought that the key to paranormal fiction was that it's thrilling, it's exciting. But it's almost like introducing thrillers to young people. So what I wanted to do was just write a thriller for young people. So there is nothing paranormal in it, but life itself can be very exciting. And that's sort of my idea, is sort of to take the exciting possibilities of real life and put them together in as thrilling a way as possible. À bientôt, je promets. Et merci.